All right, we'll continue our discussion on memory. And today we are going to look at this shared memory that we have been talking about, which is a memory accessible within a thread block. So we said that L1 cache can be categorized into two parts. It can be used as, part of it can be used as L1 cache and part of it can be used as a scratchpad memory. L1 cache is managed by the hardware, whereas the scratchpad part, which is what we are calling as shared memory, that can be utilized by the programmers to put in data and to retrieve it. Right? So that becomes very interesting from the perspective of programming. It also puts a lot of burden onto the programmer, but it does give an opportunity for us to optimize our programs for performance further. Always remember that whatever you define in shared memory is accessible only within a thread block, which means that only those, let's say 512 or 1024 threads which are there in that thread block are going to have access to a common scratchpad memory. Another thread block will have another set of bytes accessible for them. So two threads from two different thread blocks will not be able to access the same shared memory. If they have to communicate, they have to communicate via the global memory. And this is very useful from the perspective of very small data. If you want to put into shared memory, let's say we talked about some sort of metadata or some small computation which is aggregate for all the threads within a thread block, right? Or if they want to coordinate amongst themselves, amongst different threads in the same thread block, then shared memory can be very useful. And this we will revisit when we look at synchronization in the context of GPUs. Okay, so the syntax looks very simple. Whatever we define usually as variables, we just add underscore underscore shared underscore underscore to that variable inside the kernel, and that defines a shared variable. So the way it is going to look like is like this. So we have this float array of n elements, and that is going to be shared across all the threads within a thread block. Right? Similarly, there is another variable s, which is a single variable, a single unsigned, which is also shared across all the threads on the in the thread block. And from each thread, so this is all inside the kernel. This all code is within the kernel. So this particular statement is going to assign to an array element a of id based on my thread id equal to id. What would be this id? Any suggestions?
Thread ID.
Okay, it has to be only threadIdx.x. It cannot be the complete ID, the global ID, which is using the block ID part, right? So it cannot be that, because you are accessing the shared memory only within a thread block. And similarly, based on my threadIdx.x or threadIdx.y, whatever, you can assign a particular value to that shared variable. We'll have to be a little careful about these aspects. The reason being that this part is nicely parallel across all the threads, so that is okay. And therefore, these are all independent computations. As far as assigning to S is concerned, that is not, I mean, this is the same memory location across all threads of the thread block, and therefore we might have to guard assignment to that variable using the thread ID. In this case, only thread 0 in each thread block is going to access S in this case, and all other threads are not going to touch it at the same time. Okay, any questions on this basic syntax? Okay, so then I'll ask you to do something. So what I want you to do is that you are given this 1k cross 1k integer matrix M, right, which is there in the global memory using CUDA-malloc, and that is passed as a parameter to your kernel, let's say, and each row is assigned to a thread block, right? So since it is in global memory, the whole 1 million set of integers are available to all the threads on the GPU, but processing wise, each thread block accesses one row. And let's say that the thread block has 1024 threads, and therefore when one row of 1024 integers is assigned to a thread block, then each thread is assigned to one element of this row, right? So that, does that make sense? So you have think in this manner that 1024 into 1024 number of threads are launched with 1024 threads within a thread block and 1024 thread blocks. So therefore each thread has nice access to one particular element of this matrix Mij. What we want to do is that each thread changes this Mij that it is assigned to Mij plus Mij plus 1, the next element, where possible, which means that the last thread will not do it, right? And we would like to utilize shared memory for this computation. I would like you to write the code corresponding to this. Maybe if it is comfortable for you, you can write it without shared memory first and then see where you can use the shared memory. So please write that. And how many SMs share the L1? In this case, the thread block, so SM, there is only one SM assigned to each thread block, and therefore the L1 is available only within the SM, right? Even within that, we have multiple thread blocks sharing this L1 cache. So as far as SMs are concerned, they are going only, I mean, that L1 is going to be local to each SM. Okay. So I'll, unless there are any questions, I'll disable chat for,
Sir,
yeah.
One question, sir, regarding this problem, will there not be synchronization issues for this?
Yeah, that you have to figure out. That is correct. And so Karthik's observation is correct, but you have to think about why he is saying that there will be some sort of synchronization required, and you have to think about it and see if you can solve that problem. So this is also an exercise to make you aware that there are some things which will require some sort of coordination, right? So it's gearing up for let's say future lectures, right? So that is a correct observation. I would like you to still see how much you can write with respect to the functionality and what is not possible. Good observation. Okay, I'm going to disable the chat for some seconds. I would like you to think about how you will write the code, let's say with shared memory. But if you are more comfortable, you can write it without shared memory first. And then we will revisit why Karthik was suggesting that there might be a coordination required amongst threads. Okay, I'm enabling chat now. Any suggestions?
Sir?
Yeah, Venkat.
Sir, we'll need to use some sort of barrier before updating all the M's together, right?
Okay.
Because
Yes.
because all of them, like, we don't know which thread will finish when, and updating simultaneously can be concurrency issues will be there. So it will be, we need a barrier to do that.
Yeah, that's correct. So we haven't really discussed in detail about a barrier, but yeah, as Venkat is suggesting, as well as what Karthik was suggesting, is that there is some sort of a race in this problem, right? When threads try to access M of ij, because they are not only reading M of ij and M of ij plus 1, they are also writing to M of ij. And one thread's M of ij might be previous thread's Mij plus 1. And therefore, while the other thread is trying to read m of ij, the previous thread is trying to read the current m of ij, that m of ij might get written by this particular thread which is accessing ij element. And therefore, there is a race. There is a read as well as a write, and that can cause issues. So since there is a data race, we have to worry about some sort of synchronization. That synchronization can be done in multiple ways, but we'll have to hold on to it for some time. One of the ways is barriers, as Venkat is suggesting. Another way is that we might have to use some sort of atomic instruction while updating it, as we will study later.
Sir?
Yeah,
But we
Venkat.
can also like do one thing, right? That every row we can copy into some shared array and then use the shared array and then update the original row.
That is correct. So that is what I was expecting you guys to think about, that you don't need necessarily an in situ update. What you could do is to have copy of this into shared memory, update it in the shared memory, and then copy it back to the global memory. But it's not as simple as it looks like, because we are usually biased thinking sequentially. But these steps, copying to shared memory, updating it in shared memory, and then copying it back, these have to be done in that particular order. And then there might be a possibility that we might have to worry about whether all the copying must be done before the next step begins, and then all the updates, whether those need to be done completely before the copying back begins, right? So in this case, it is not going to matter, because you are writing to different memory locations, as well as actually in this case also it will matter. In this case also it will matter. So even in this case, you will still require one barrier, and I'll mention to you a little bit why that will be required before we look at some of you have written different codes. So we'll take a look at that, but let me convince you why you will require some sort of barrier or a synchronization point to make sure that all the threads have completed the copy, right? So as far as we said that there are 3 steps, right? So let me just push that into the chat box for now. Copy from global to shared, right? So this is step 1. Second step is update in shared, right? And the third step is copy back from shared to global. Right? So these are the 3 steps in which we can do. Assume that enough memory is available in shared memory. There is a restriction, but let's assume that enough memory is available. Now, when you copy from global to shared, that can be done very nicely in parallel by all the threads, right? And when I am updating in shared memory, m of ij, which is going to be available for me now in shared memory, I should not update it based on the data in shared memory, because again the same problem arises. So I should get m of ij plus 1 from the global memory, because that is not going to get modified because that is getting copied, right? So there is a read-only part of the global memory, then there is read and update part of the shared memory. You can as well read both the values from global memory, but since you are the one who is updating m of ij, you can as well read it from shared memory. That will be faster. So you just read m of ij plus 1 from the global memory and update your m of ij in the shared memory, right? So that can be nicely done, and these 2 steps can be done in parallel without any barrier in between, right? However, when you are copying it back in the third step, some threads will be faster depending upon the scheduling by the GPU, some threads will be slower, or let's say some warps will be slower, and therefore it's possible that one warp might not have finished step 1 while another warp is executing step 3. And if that happens, then you are into trouble again, because you might be reading from the same memory location in step 1, that is one warp is reading from the same memory location from let's say step 2, whereas another might be writing to the same memory location. And this will happen at the boundaries of the warps, because warps are executing in lockstep fashion. And therefore, at the boundaries of the warp, there is a possibility of a data race. If you do not have some sort of synchronization between step 2 and step 3, between step 2 and step 3. Between 1 and 2, you don't require a barrier. But if you add a barrier between step 1 and step 2, that alone is not sufficient, because the reading of global memory is happening in step 2, and writing to global memory is happening in step 3. And therefore, you need necessarily a barrier between step 2 and step 3. Barrier is just a one synchronization point where all the threads meet before any thread begins execution of the next step, right? So we'll worry about that soon. I mean, just a few slides away, what that barrier is. But briefly, that is what is the meaning of a barrier. Okay, let's go back to the codes, but Shouvick has a question. Each row will be processed sequentially, but across rows in parallel? No. Across rows, anyway, multiple thread blocks are processing. So therefore, across rows, there is parallelism, but each row is getting processed by multiple warps, and therefore, each row is also getting processed in parallel. In fact, each element, right? So multiple elements of the same row are getting processed in parallel. Right? So that is the expectation. Update need to be completed by all threads in step 2, then only step 3 can be initiated. That is correct. So that is correct. Arianti said we want the number of shared memory accesses to be more. So will m of id equal to sid plus shared id plus 1 not be better? If you want to directly write to m of id, okay, so Arianti is suggesting that instead of performing the update in the shared memory, can we not do m of id update directly? If that is something which you want to do, that is possible. So you copy it to shared memory and then make the shared memory access read-only. And for that, okay, so since in the first step, we copy from global memory to shared memory, there is writing to shared memory happening. And then if we use Arihant's equation, the statement, then there is reading of shared memory happening. So we require a barrier between step 1 and step 2. And then within 2 steps alone, we will be able to write it back to m of id. That should be okay. That should be okay. I think that is fine. That should be all right. Will it reduce the number of global memory accesses? So step 1 remains the same. Step 2 and then step 3. Yeah, so the global memory accesses, okay. I should mention that the global memory accesses are usually, the latency is much more dominant compared to the shared memory access. You can imagine that there is L1 cache and that is global memory. So even if you have a few more shared memory accesses, performance-wise, you will not face any penalty. In this case, as long as you have global memory accesses somewhere. So in this case, both the versions will use the same number of global memory access. No, there is one more memory access which is being done in step 2, right? So you are right. So therefore, this will give you a better answer, right? So Aryan's solution is likely to be better because one global memory access gets reduced. Shared memory accesses, you don't have to really worry about the number of accesses as long as there are mix of shared and global. The latency is really very small. Yes, so Venkat is suggesting that step 1 and step 2, so there are only 2 steps required, and both of them need to be separated by some sort of a barrier or a synchronization point. Shouvick is suggesting that this is similar to 2D image blurring. Each pixel is average of its 8 neighbors. That is correct. So this example that I have given is a very specific example of a general form of computation called as a stencil computation. And in stencil computation, you have a grid of points, and each point is some sort of a function of its neighbors, right? It could be 4 neighbors, 2 neighbors, or 8 neighbors. Sometimes it is in the 3D part, and therefore you might have, let's say, 26 neighbors or so, right? So this is very similar to what Shouvick is suggesting. So that is called as a stencil computation. And that turns out to be a very, very common access pattern in many applications, not only graphics, but also many times you have some sort of communication across different molecules or different particles which are there in 2D or 3D space, and they are exerting forces onto each other. Right? So this, as long as you know that this particular geometry is known at compile time, at statically, then this tensile computation turns out to be a relevant mapping of your problem into the 2D grid or 3D grid sort of a domain. Okay, let me go back to the codes. Sumit has suggested that we can have __ shared A of 1024. That is correct. You will require that shared memory area to be defined that way. Shared current thread equal to 0. Amit is suggesting that, and if threadIdx is current thread and j+1 is less than 1024, then you perform. So this, so Amit, this will work. Seems to be correct to the extent I can see, except that this is going to completely sequentialize the processing. So you are going to access different elements totally sequentially, just to preserve the let's say that there shouldn't be any data race kind of thing, or yeah, but it will, I mean, the advantage of avoiding the data race is going to be less compared to the disadvantage of this sequential processing performance wise, and therefore we would like to have as much parallelism as possible here, just that we will worry about a little bit of synchronization here and there. Right? So that turns out to be better, but this seems to be a correct code, and this approach seems to be correct, and this is likely to work as well. So correctness wise, there is no. Yeah, Venkat.
Sir, in this case, it might happen that, let's suppose two threads start executing the if condition and both pick the current thread number as 0. Then one of the threads which was supposed to go into the if won't go into the if, and the if block won't be executed, and it will just return, right? Because it's a shared memory, and like it's not like one thread is waiting for the other thread to update the current thread number. They'll just take,
yeah, I feel it should.
Let's suppose thread 1 and thread 2 both take current thread as 0. Then thread 1 will go into the if condition, but thread 2 won't. But thread 2 won't come back and check again, right?
No. So this condition is also there, right? threadIdx.x equals current thread. So only thread 0 will go into the if block first.
Yes,
then
sir,
it will.
Like what I'm saying is it will go into the if block, but thread 2, let's suppose when it picks the current thread value to check the if condition, current thread is 0.
Right.
Then it will not go into the if condition.
It will come out of this. Yeah,
it will come out. So the update won't happen for a particular array, right?
That is correct. Yes. So we will require a while loop here rather than an if condition. That is correct. Yes. You are right. Yes. Yeah. So that yeah, assuming that Amit wanted it to be going like hop by hop from one element of the array, one element of the row to another element, assuming that that is what Amit meant, this will require a while loop. That is correct. Yeah, that's a good observation. Okay, let's come to Rigved. Amit, if you have any suggestions further, please feel free to. Yeah, Amit is suggesting that that should be a while. Okay, good.
Sir, but if we keep like that by keeping while loop, wouldn't it be decreasing the efficiency?
Yes, it will not be a concurrent execution. So that's what I was mentioning, that correctness wise, it seems to be a correct code. That is not a problem. But yeah, performance wise, we'll have to pay the penalty. That is correct. So we would prefer a parallel code as much as possible. That's correct. So Rigved is again declaring temp of 1024. That is correct. Temp of threadIdx.x, m of threadIdx.x, that okay. So this particular statement, we will have to be a little careful. So temp of threadIdx.x is always correct. So whenever you are accessing a shared memory array, it has to be indexed by threadIdx.x. I mean, whatever, .x, .y, whatever you have. There should not be any block ID coming into picture there. However, as far as M is concerned, since there are multiple thread blocks, we'll have to use the global ID instead of the local ID. So that we have to be careful. threadIdx less than 1023, then temp of blockIdx. Okay, so I'm a little confused here because this.
Sir, actually it was M. Instead I wrongly wrote temp. M of blockId.x, it
Oh,
is
I
row
see,
and
I
then
see, I
column is equal to temp.
Okay, so M of block ID, then thread ID plus equal to temp of block ID thread ID, is it?
Sir, I will paste the right code. 1 second.
Yeah, sure, sure. Go ahead. So again, I encourage all of you to try this out. I mean, you might be a little shy in pushing it into the chat box or explaining it verbally, but please try this out. It's very important that we spend time. It's okay to commit mistakes. We are all here to learn. So it's not an issue. So Rigved is suggesting M of block ID, then thread ID plus equal to temp of thread ID plus 1. Yeah, that seems to be okay, except that here also will require some sort of a barrier between the steps that we have not really studied. So it is all right. Because we are writing to M as well as we are reading from M. Right? So that is definitely one thing. Second thing is that we are also writing to temp in the first line, and then we are reading from temp of thread ID plus 1. Right? So the next thread's writing should have been finished before I can do reading of that temp of threadIdx.x plus 1. This will be guaranteed for warp threads. So if I say that thread number, let's say 60, right, is reading the temp of 61, right, it is guaranteed that temp of assignment to temp of 61, that is the next thread, is over before temp of 6, before the thread 60 reads that value in that if block, because they are part of the same warp. So it is guaranteed that the previous statement is over. However, that cannot be guaranteed for thread number 63 and reading the value of thread number 64, because these are different warps. Okay, good. This was a good discussion.
So, sir, just a small thing on this one.
Yeah, sure.
So instead of doing this, can we just maintain two shared memory vectors, one reading 1 to 32 and the other reading from 2 to 33, so that the warp reads the same thing at the same time, and then that just adds it up and then updates the global memory? So that need not be synchronized at all, because
Okay.
a warp will read from 1 to 32 and at the same time will also read from 2 to 33, right? So
Okay, let's understand this. So you have, are you saying there are two arrays in the
yes,
shared memory?
two shared memory arrays, yeah.
So those are going to get populated directly from M?
Yes, yes, yes.
I see. So let's say that that population has happened and I'm reading from one array, let's say 0 to 31, and then there is another which is 2 to 32. For a particular warp, we'll have to do it for all the elements. And then I'm reading one value. So let's say that there is a barrier after M is copied. So there is a barrier. Then I'm reading these two elements and updating in locally in M. So the second array from 1 to 32 is going to be read only in this case. And the first array is going to be read as well as write. But since every thread is writing to its own memory location, that seems to be fine to me. And then after that, every element pushes the value back from its first array to main memory. And since there was already a barrier, you don't require a second barrier between the second and the third step. So that seems to be okay, except for this duplication of elements. The approach seems to be correct. That seems to be fine.
Okay.
Yeah. Anybody sees any issues with this approach that Sheikh mentioned?
Can you explain why we don't need synchronization there?
Yeah. So the second step is reading from second array, so that is not a problem, and it is reading and writing from the first array. Right? Now when you are copying back to M, you as a thread are going to be writing to the same memory location and going to copy the same memory location to M. And therefore, unless you have written completely to your temp of ID, you will not go to writing to M of ID. And therefore, it is guaranteed that that sequentiality is going to not create any problem. There is nothing that we are writing to in the second step, which which is from some other thread which is being read in the third step, in the copying back to M. And therefore, there is this sequentiality is going to get maintained automatically as long as the first and the second steps are separated by the barrier. Right? So the copying back to M is happening only with respect to my ID. And that is guaranteed to be over because a thread executes sequentially. Does that seem reasonable?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Okay. Yeah. Any other concerns here? Okay, so let's take up, Sai Venkat Kushal has also written the array. Okay, so that is fine.
Sir, that was a typo. I didn't come.
No problem, that's fine. Krishna Vamsi is saying unsigned L equal to threadIdx plus block size into blockId.x. Okay. Then shared int mem shared of block size. Okay. If, maybe I greater than n, then return mem shared of thread ID equal to m of I. Okay. Or m of L. Requires some barrier, then m of I equal to mem shared of threadIdx plus mem shared of threadIdx plus 1. That is correct. So this is similar to what I think Aryanth had suggested. That is correct. So you need a barrier just after copying from main memory to global memory, and then you can write it directly back to main memory using the shared memory part, where the shared memory is only getting read in the second step and it is getting written to in the first step, and therefore these need to be separated by a barrier. That seems to be correct solution. Mansi is saying reading from CPU memory every time will be slower than duplicating of data in GPU. Reading from CPU memory every time will be slower than duplicating of data in GPU. Oh, you are talking about the suggestion here where we have 0 to 31 and 1 to 32. I hope it's Mansi, this is related to this. In this case, that is correct, that performance wise you will it will still be all right. So I am assuming that this is reading from the GPU global memory is what you mean. That is correct. Performance wise you will not face any penalty. But remember also that shared memory is very limited. And if you, for sufficiently larger programs, you would like to have, or sufficiently larger data, you would like to utilize it as much as possible. And if there is nothing else that you want to store in the shared memory, then this approach is all right. You can use this. But if there is some other data, then this duplication will possibly hurt you. Yeah, but otherwise, your point is valid that duplicating the data in shared memory will have lesser performance issues with compared to when reading from the global memory. That is correct. Yeah, Krishna Vamsi has corrected that. L greater than equal to 1024. Yeah, that seems to be fine. Okay, that seems good. We might have to make it L greater than equal to 1023 maybe, but yeah, that's probably relatively minor issue. Okay, good. Any other questions here?
Sir, if data is more than 1024, then how will that work?
So if the amount of data is more than 1024, does that mean that you cannot store it in the shared memory? Well, the amount of data that you have is 1024 integers, whereas the amount of memory that you have available in shared memory is going to be 48K, 48 kilobytes, which means that you can store 12K integers into the shared memory per thread block. And if that is the case, you should be able to definitely store 12K integers into the shared memory. The access pattern will change. I mean, currently we are looking at our initial program, so therefore the access pattern is going to be very simple. Whatever is my thread ID, I'm going to access that particular element in the shared memory. But in this case, as soon as you have more memory available and you can store more data, you should store more data if there is a use case for that. That is, there is a reuse of these elements. And in this case, a chunk of shared memory is going to be assigned to each thread rather than one element. So if there is 12K integers, that means that for 1024 threads, 12 integer chunk is available per thread. So then the access pattern will be, there will be a for loop which will be more like for I equal to 0 to less than 12. I'm going to access all the elements which are based on my thread ID. So 12 into thread ID, right, from that memory location to 12 into thread ID plus 1 until that, less than that, those are the number of elements that I'm going to access, right? So if my thread ID is threadIdx.x is going to access A of 12 into threadIdx.x all the way to A of 12 into threadIdx.x plus 1. Right, so minus 1. Minus. So these are the elements which will be accessed by one thread at max. I mean, you can have smaller amount of data and accordingly that 12 will change to something else, but this is the maximum that you can do. There could be other complicated patterns that you might want to think about. This is like, these are completely independent. Right? So one thread is not accessing somebody else's data in this case, but we'll soon see some patterns where even in the current case we accessed I plus 1 or j plus 1. So in that case also we were accessing somebody else's. You might have more complicated patterns. Sometimes you may not have a per thread information. You might have just an aggregate information. Right? And that also turns out to be useful, but that will require some sort of synchronization. Okay, any other questions here? All right, so we'll move ahead from here. This was a very good discussion and I'm happy that you guys talked about various approaches. We also improved the approach that I was talking about using your Arihan's suggestion of reducing one memory location to one memory access to global memory. Okay, so let's say that there is some program like this. So which I'm mentioning here. Where block size is 1024. By the way, I'm in most of our programs, I'm taking block size as 1024, but that need not be the case. It just offers maximum parallelism. But that doesn't mean that it's the best one always. Especially when you have very independent computations, you can go for 1024. But if you have some sort of synchronization, you should definitely try with fewer number of threads per thread block. And it need not be again power of 2. Block size need not be power of 2. It just needs to be typically a multiple of 32 is what we use, but that is also not required. You can have block size of 5, for example, or 150, whatever. So it will still work as long as you take care of the ID. But you should definitely try for lower number of threads per thread block, especially when you have large amount of data per thread, which means that there are large number of local variables which you are using. Or if you want to increase the amount of data shared memory which is available per thread, or you have some sort of synchronization within the kernel, right? That will come to a little later, but you should just keep in mind that 1024 is not the holy grail. All right. So we have a shared variable here, right? And then thread ID 0 is assigning some value to it. Then thread ID 1 is incrementing that value. thread ID 100 is incrementing that value further, and then thread ID 0 is printing that value. And this I am invoking with a single thread block, right? So what is the output of this code?
It should print nothing.
Okay, why is that?
Like threadIdx.x can be 0 once. Only once, since there is only one block, thread block given.
No. So there is one thread block which has 0 to 1023 threads.
Okay.
Right? So
So
this,
won't the output depend? Like there is inconsistency. Someone text put on chat as well.
Oh,
what is that? There is inconsistency. Sanket is saying. Rahul is saying depends on the order of execution of thread. Rahul is suggesting race condition. How many Rahuls we have in the class? Okay. So, but yes. So where is the inconsistency or order of execution coming into picture, or the race condition coming into picture? Among WAPs. Okay. Where is that?
Like thread ID x equal to 100 is creating a problem because 0 and 1 are in the same WAP, but 100 is in a different one.
So what
So
is
we
the
can't
problem
ensure-
here?
So we can't ensure that the third if condition will happen first or the other two will happen first. Let's suppose a thread ID x equal to 100 happens first, like that thread executes, then s will become 2. And then if suppose these two if conditions happen, then the shared variable will vary accordingly. So it depends on the order of execution, so it can't be consistent.
Okay, that makes sense. So, right. So what all of you have suggested is the correct thing. So we have, let's understand what Venkat was saying. As far as thread 0 and thread 1 are concerned, both of them are part of the same warp, and therefore they are going to execute in lockstep fashion, which means that unless s equal to 0 is completed by the warp, in this case only thread ID 0 completes that execution, but until this if statement is executed, you will not go for checking, the warp will not go for checking if thread ID is equal to 1, right? And as we said that the Ravana is going to only open first head's eyes, right, for s equal to 0, and then it will open it for the second head, right? So then all other heads are going to close their eyes. So s plus equal to 1 is guaranteed to happen after s equal to 0. And therefore, the printf is also guaranteed to happen after both of these statements are executed, because it's the same warp which is executing the printf. However, threadIdx.x equals 100 is a different warp, and therefore it's not guaranteed how s plus equal to 2 is going to get executed. It might happen before s equal to 0. It might happen between s equal to 0 and s plus equal to 1. Or it might happen after s plus equal to 1 and printf, or it might happen after the printf as well, right? So this is also possible that the 100th thread might execute this if statement after thread 0 has printed it out, right? So the thread 0 is definitely going to execute this statement. This condition is going to get evaluated by the first warp. All the threads in that warp 0 to 31 are going to check for this condition. It will be false, and therefore all of them can move to the last condition and they can execute printf, while the warp which is containing thread number 100 is still trying to execute something here, or it might not have executed at all. So all of this is possible, and therefore we might not see a consistent output of this particular code. Okay, thinking in sequential manner. Okay, no problem. Is it guaranteed that 0 to 31 will be in the same warp? Yes. Warp size is 32, and it has been 32 since a long time now, since several years. More than 10 years now, the warp size is the same, and therefore they are 0 to, I mean, it's a static mapping that they are all in the same warp. Is it possible that 2 to 33 will be in the warp? No, that will not be possible. Okay, so that actually helps us guarantee certain things. But yeah, that is what we will go ahead with, and that is what happens. Okay, any other concerns here? Okay, so understand, we have understood it more than what I am going to show. So let's hold on to it for now. So I'm just going to show that one of the executions is s equal to 3, but that is not guaranteed. Right? So what I'm going to do now is to change that dkernel's, I mean, if you run this code, most probably you will not see that inconsistency, but it is possible, right? And I'll show you how to get into that inconsistent output, right? So that is what we are going to study now. So I'm going to change that 1 comma block size to 2 comma block size, and then I run it again, and what I get is also s equal to 3, s equal to 3 again, and therefore I might get tempted to feel that this code seems to be correct and there is nothing wrong with this code, right? But that is output will be 1 or 3. Output can be 1, that is possible. Output can be 3, that is possible. Is there any other output possible? Yes, okay. So yeah, that's a good question. Okay, on GPUs, apart from 1 and 3, no other output is possible. Let me put it this way, that on the current GPUs, apart from 1 and 3, nothing else is going to be printed. That is correct. However, there are some CPUs, I mean, I'm just talking in general now, whenever you have a concurrent execution with such statements, there are CPUs which might not guarantee, if you have this data race and you are writing to the common memory location, that memory location is going to contain one of the two values. That is not guaranteed. And therefore, in such machines, in such architectures, in such memories, you might see a totally different output. In fact, there is no guarantee that it will be between 1 and 3. On our GPUs, yes, it will always be 1 and 3. You will not see any other. So these are called as CRCW, concurrent reads, concurrent writes, which are supported. In which case, when you have concurrent writes, then one of the values is going to be always maintained. Right? In some architectures, or in some, let's say, specially designed CPUs, this guarantee might not be given by the hardware, that when multiple threads are writing, the value will always be one of them. They can just say that the value might get garbled, and therefore what you will get is probably a garbage. So in such cases, you might see something which is very different from 1 and 3. It might just be 10,000, right, for example. Okay, but in this case, yes, it is going to be 1 or 3. That is correct. Okay, so in this case, let's say I see an output s equals 3, and therefore, okay, Shouvick has raised a hand. Shouvick, you have any questions?
So here we have 2 s equal to 3, s equal to 3. So does that mean s will be copied for different blocks? For each block, there will be a copy of s?
Yes, that is correct. So since there are 2 blocks now, these 2 SS which are getting printed are 2 different memory locations. These are in 2 different thread blocks. That means they have single unsigned integer stored across 2 thread blocks, across 2 memories, 2 shared memories. That is correct. Okay, any other concerns? Okay, so let's look at what happens when I want to somehow get into that inconsistency, right? So what I'm going to do is to run it with 2 thread blocks, but run it multiple number of times. Right? And then when I try to run it, mostly I get s equal to 3. But as you can see, there is one piece which is going to print, and this is the actual output which I have obtained on the GPU, on my GPU. And you should definitely try it on your GPU, whether you get some such output. And getting such an output means that you are lucky. That means that you are able to identify that there is a problem. Otherwise, sometimes these concurrency bugs might just lurk around in the code and you might not be able to even see it because we are relying on the output, and output might reveal, output can reveal presence of bugs, but it cannot reveal the absence of bugs. So therefore, I was lucky that I could get this particular when I run it enough number of times, right? So you should definitely try that out. Okay, so there is further discussion onto this, but we'll keep that for the next week. That's testing, yeah. Shouvick works in the parallel testing, so that's why he's excited. Okay, any questions before we stop for today?
Sir, is it possible to find the output inconsistent output if we keep block size, comma block size?
If we keep block size, comma block, I'm not sure. I haven't tried it. My feeling is that it might not reveal that, because it was not revealing for single execution of 2 blocks. It might not reveal it for multiple blocks as well, and therefore it's possible that therefore I had to possibly execute it multiple number of times. But maybe if you are lucky, it can. Even with one thread block, if I keep running it, it should possibly give that inconsistent output. So multiple thread blocks being run first time, maybe this s equal to 1 could have happened at the start itself, right, if I was lucky. So it's possible that it can happen, but my feeling is that maybe it will not happen, but you should definitely check.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. Sheera is asking, is GPU application code verification in place? Is GPU application code verification in place? Sorry, Sheera, I didn't understand the question. Could you please explain that?
Sir, I mean to ask, like any verification happens for GPU applications, like software, like CPU code verifications are there, right? Software system verification.
Yes. Yeah, so there are some research works which have tried to apply verification to the GPU codes. These are still in very, I would say, nascent stage. But yeah, there are some small research works. If you are interested, just mail me. I can point you to some of these initial studies. In case that is helpful for your research work, I can point you to that. There are very few codes, very few research works, but yes, there is some work.
Yes, sir, I'll be interested actually.
Sure. Yeah, just mail me. I'll reply to you.
Yeah, sure.
So one of the issues that comes up in the context of GPUs is that one is the massive multi-threading. Therefore, the number of states which you can reach in a state transition diagram can be really arbitrarily large, and that causes problems. And therefore, many of the verification tools, what they do is that they restrict themselves to 1 or 2 thread blocks. So if you are able to identify, and there is also a study which says that if you are able to identify something with large number of threads, you'll also be able to identify it with most of the bugs. You'll be able to identify with 2 or 3 threads, and that also translates to 2 or 3 thread blocks. And therefore, many of these tools will actually look at the interleavings of statements across just a few, and that is usually enough to identify most of the bugs. So therefore, that is still possible here. All right. If there are no further questions, we'll stop here. See you next week and enjoy your assignment submission.